There have literally been hundreds of people who have come here to pay their respects and share in the collective grief of our city. Also, if we can show you up above just a little bit, please. Right over here, right over here, the Toronto Strong sign is being held up. These are members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, and they've been holding this sign, members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, for about 2 hours now, as they show support for this community. Now, Premier Kathleen Wynne and Mayor John Tory were here earlier. Here's what they said.
We love these people. They were our fellow Torontonians who lost their lives or were injured, or families who suffered a terrible loss yesterday, or even some of our first responders who were traumatized by the experience they went through. And so we're here as part of that healing process, which I think will take a long time. It will leave a scar on the city, but scars are part of the healing process. Mayor
Tory and Premier Kathleen Wynne both brought flowers, laid the flowers down here, and signed a placard here. And there's dozens of placards all around. I want to bring in Woman, you are a South Korean student who lives here in Toronto. We see all of these signs here in the Korean language. This is Koreatown in some ways, or New Koreatown is what it's called. And you've learned today that 2 of the deceased, is what we're hearing from South Korean news agencies, 2 of the deceased are South Korean nationals. Yeah. How do you feel?
Well, most of the Koreans come here because, as you can see, there are a lot of Korean restaurants and Korean markets. So Korean students, most of the Korean students come here to learn English. But seeing those incidents, this terror taking place on the street where we used to walk normally, is very heartbreaking.
Now, CTV News has learned that Alek Minassian joined the Canadian Armed Forces for a short time last year. Minassian appeared in court today, and he was charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of attempted murder. He's accused of deliberately driving a rented van into pedestrians over a stretch of 16 blocks. Minassian will be back in court on May 10th. CTV's Mercedes Stevenson has more on his connections to the military.
They say that Alek Minassian, the accused in the recent incident in Toronto, was a member of the Canadian Armed Forces for 2 months in late 2017, from August 23rd until the 25th of October. He did not complete his recruit training and requested to be voluntarily released from the Canadian Armed Forces after 16 days of recruit training. So it doesn't tell us why he wanted to be out, but what we do know is the military didn't force him to leave. That wasn't a medical reason. That was him asking and them agreeing to release him voluntarily.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the victims?
Now, that man right there is believed to be the father of the accused, and he was the center of attention outside the courthouse where his parent son appeared this morning, but didn't make any comments at all to reporters. Now, law enforcement officials and many on social media are praising the response of the officer involved in the takedown.
Come on, get down! Come on, get down! Get down!
Constable Ken Lamb is the one who was involved in this interaction with the suspect. Lamb is a traffic enforcement officer from 32 Division with 12 years of service. In this viewer video, the suspect is heard telling the officer to kill him. Toronto Police Association President Mike McCormick calls Lamb a hero. It's a massive crime scene. We're talking 16 blocks, some 2-kilometer stretch of Yonge Street, 6 lanes in either direction, plus the sidewalks, plus some of the side streets. It's an awfully large area to comb through for evidence.
One of the largest crime scenes I've ever experienced, Nick. I mean, it's, as you said, 16 blocks wide. It's all got to be processed, it's all got to be photographed, and it's all got to be cataloged. And the accident reconstruction team, when they reconstruct that accident, will have to take in this entire crime scene and document the path of that vehicle as it made its way south on Yonge Street.
Now, we're expecting an update, Steve, from police officials perhaps in the next hour or so, sort of about the investigation. But what else is going on behind the scenes that, as somebody with the inside knowledge that you have, that we're not seeing today, whether you're on Yonge Street or not? What else would be going on?
A lot of the work that we're not seeing is going on in the police divisions. That will include many search warrants to obtain things such as cell phones and social media sites and any electronic devices that this accused may have had access to. They're trying to get into in-depth investigation into his background. What was the motivation behind this? Was there anybody that encouraged him, or what was his motivation? That would speak greatly to the charges that have been laid, and it certainly will assist in the investigation. His background is going to be a big part of this investigation.
Okay, Steve Ryan, our crime specialist live at Yonge and Finch. Thanks so much, Steve. We're also learning more today about the victims. Officials in Seoul say 2 South Korean nationals were among the 10 people killed and a third has been seriously injured. At this point, though, their identities have not been released. Toronto's Anne-Marie D'Amico died after being hit on Yonge Street. She worked at Invesco in the area and is being remembered by friends and family online for her involvement in student groups and sport. And a new Facebook page has been set up called Remembering Anne-Marie D'Amico. A statement posted this afternoon says the D'Amico family thanks everyone for their words, love, and support during this time.
3 words in front of a packed courtroom. He quietly spoke his name and simply answered yes when the Crown requested he not have any direct or indirect communication with the complainants.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the victims?
This man is believed to be the father of the accused. He was the center of attention outside the courthouse this morning, but didn't make any comments to reporters. Minassian will be back in court on May 10th. Meanwhile, today we learned Alek Minassian joined the Canadian Armed Forces for a short time last year. He was accepted for recruit training last year, but did not complete it. The Minister of Defense says he went through a very rigorous screening process and says the military always cooperates with security officials.
One thing I can assure you is that when it comes through the selection process that the military takes, we go through a very rigorous process in terms of security, medical testing, making sure that the people that are going to be doing the Canadian Armed Forces have been thoroughly screened, and in this case that was done, and we'll continue to do so.
Well, CTV News has learned that Alek Minassian spent time in the Canadian Armed Forces, a very short stint in the Canadian military in late 2017. In fact, he only completed 16 days of recruit training before he asked to be voluntarily released from the Canadian military, something the military agreed to.
The Canadian Armed Forces has not commented further on Minassian's service due to privacy reasons. Law enforcement officials and many on social media are praising the response by the officer involved in the takedown.
Come on, get down! No, get down! Get down!
Constable Kenny Lamb was the one involved in the interaction with the suspect. He's described by colleagues as having a heart of gold. In this viewer video, the suspect can be heard telling the officer to kill him. Toronto Police Association President Mike McCormick calls Lamb a hero.
We have people who have died, who've lost their loved ones, families have been ruined. I just made an arrest. I'm a cop. That's what I do. What's the big deal about me? Let's pay attention to what's going on with the family. He's a great guy, but in my eyes, everybody's eyes, he's a hero.
Lamb is a traffic enforcement officer from 32 Division with 7 years of service. Family and friends of the victims are putting names and faces to some of the people who died in yesterday's attack. Closed for nearly 30 hours between Finch and Shepherd, Yonge Street has been fully reopened after yesterday's deadly sidewalk rampage. 7:39 degrees, you're watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24. Officials continue to piece together the events related to yesterday's van attack in North York. This afternoon, officials updated their investigation where 10 people were killed and 14 others were injured. The lead homicide investigator revealed some of the details leading up to the attack. Police say it started with suspect Alek Minassian renting a van and posting a message on Facebook suggesting a possible motive for the attack.
The accused is alleged to have posted a cryptic message on Facebook minutes before he began driving the rented van, and he drove it southbound on Yonge Street and onto the crowded sidewalks. He continued to drive southbound on Yonge Street, deliberately striking pedestrians on the sidewalk and roadway with the vehicle. The accused was arrested by a member of the Toronto Police Service in the area of Yonge and Shepherd Avenue. Once arrested, the accused was taken to 32 Division, and he was investigated by the homicide squad.
The massive scene, stretching 2 kilometers and 16 blocks, has been a painstaking and confusing scene for police to process. At issue is the giant debris field and items scattered due to the nature of the attack.
You can imagine we had to focus yesterday on our victims and the people who were injured, our scene, and gathering as much evidence as we could at the time. All that has taken an inordinate amount of time. Last night, all through the night, everybody worked, including this morning. All of those things have to be looked at, and it's going to be over the coming weeks.
The confusing and complex crime scene has also posed problems for the coroner, who is trying to identify the victims.
There's a team actively working right now, forensic pathologists, forensic anthropologists, coroners, dentists, and scientists all working together, as I say, to make a plan and to develop this. Having said that, I don't believe that we will be confirming names for certainly a number of days. And when we do, we will release those in a respectful way after the family are notified of the confirmation.
We have started to learn more about some of the 10 victims that were killed yesterday. 80-year-old Dorothy Sewell lived in the Yonge and Finch area. Her family says she was an avid sports fan and the best grandmother they could ask for. Another victim has been identified by friends as Chol Min Eddie Kang. Kang worked at Copacabana Brazilian Steakhouse located on Adelaide near Duncan. In a statement, the restaurant said his death brings the company great sadness and that he will be deeply missed. Armando Sandoval worked with Kang and spoke about his friend.
He has passion for food. He has passion for cooking, for preparing everything. It's not the way they kill it. I feel too many things. I'm still in shock. I don't know what can I say, but just we need to pray for those people.
Toronto's Anne-Marie D'Amico died after being struck on Yonge Street. She worked at Invesco in the area and is being remembered by friends and family online for her involvement in student groups and sport. The D'Amico family released a statement which reads in part, Anne-Marie had a generous heart and always did big things for people. She wouldn't stop until she went the extra mile for others, and that was manifested in her loving attention to detail. Her name has been broadcasted around the world, attached to this terrible tragedy, but we want everyone to know that she embodied the definition of altruism. It comforts us knowing that the world has a chance to know her, and we hope that in this time, people fight with the same altruism rather than anger and hatred. Officials in Seoul say 2 South Korean nationals were among the 10 people killed, and a third was seriously injured. The Jordanian embassy in Ottawa has also confirmed that one of their citizens has been killed. The identities of the 3 have not yet been released. Mayor John Tory announced a new fund to help support victims and those affected by yesterday's attack.
The City of Toronto has partnered with the Toronto Foundation, and there will be initiated today a fund that is called #Toronto Strong Fund. And this will ensure that donations can be put together in one place and then can flow to families and agencies and others in an orderly fashion, including victim services.
A moment of silence was held on Yonge Street for the victims of the deadly attack.
So please join me in silent prayer.
A large crowd gathered in Olive Square near Yonge and Finch, where a memorial continues to grow. Members of the community paused at 1:30, the exact time the attack took place yesterday.
I think it means a lot. What's so beautiful is if you see on the cards, the placards, there are so many different languages written, and it just represents the diversity of our community, and that no matter what language we speak, we all speak love, and everyone who is here is trying to show their love, their support, and their care for our community.
Premier Kathleen Wynne and Mayor John Tory visited the growing memorial in Olive Square near where the van attack took place in North York. They brought flowers and they left their own messages to the victims among the hundreds that have been left so far. Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Dowdeswell also visited the memorial this afternoon. She laid flowers, read some of the messages left, and briefly offered her thoughts to reporters.
A reminder of how very fortunate we are to live in this country, in this province, in this city, where in spite of tragedy, we're still all brought together as a community. And what we hear from those around us, from the diversity of our community, reflects just the best of humanity.
Politicians from all levels of government paused to remember those affected by yesterday's attack.
If I can ask members of council to please rise for a moment of silence.
At City Hall, Mayor John Tory, city councillors, as well as those in the gallery, rose for a moment of silence for those affected. Council then recessed for the rest of the day and will reconvene tomorrow for its regular meeting at 9:30 tomorrow morning.
I would ask everyone in the House to please rise.
At Queen's Park, MPPs held a moment of silence ahead of question period this morning. Flags at the legislature have also been lowered to half-mast. A statement of strength by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today.
We cannot, as Canadians, choose to live in fear every single day as we go about our daily business.
While speaking in Ottawa, Trudeau is encouraging Canadians to stay strong and not panic after yesterday's deadly van attack. He also offered his condolences to the victims. 10 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of attempted murder. That's what Alek Minassian has been charged with after yesterday's deadly van attack. The 25-year-old from Richmond Hill is the man accused of running down people in North York, 10 of whom did not survive. Minassian's hands were cuffed behind his back, and he donned a white forensic jumpsuit provided by police. He will remain behind bars until his next court appearance on May 10th. Meanwhile, today we learned Alek Minassian joined the Canadian Armed Forces for a short time last year. He was accepted for recruit training last year, but did not complete it. Toronto police continue to investigate a possible motive for the deadly attack and are looking into a Facebook post written by the suspect. Alek Minassian posted this message, which appears to be in support of an American mass killer. It says the incel rebellion is here. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. It ends with all hail the Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rodger.
Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Tomorrow is the day of retribution.
22-year-old Elliot Rodger was behind the murders of 3 men and 2 women in California in 2014. In a video he posted hours before the murders, Rodger said he wanted to punish women for rebuffing him and wanted revenge on men who were sexually active. He referred to men who got the attention of women as Chads and women who turned him down as Stacys. Incel is short for involuntary celibacy. Rodger took his life after the killings. James Cantor is the director of the Toronto Sexuality Centre, and he says this group is not a terrorist organization, but rather people who need to simply build on their social skills.
But now that it is so easy for groups like this to gather together in large groups, people, again, who often have very poor social skills, this becomes their only means of social input. And when they're surrounded by other people with similar frustrations, they kind of lose track of what typical discourse is, and they drive themselves into more and more extreme beliefs. But as I say, for a lot of these people, they are unhappy and frustrated. And for a lot of people, the best thing that we can do with them is good old-fashioned social skills building in therapy or in other situations.
CTV's public safety analyst Chris Lewis says there's more of an awareness that people need to say something when they see or hear something suspicious.
People need to be aware that the life they save by reporting somebody might be a loved one, might be a neighbor or a friend. And then just people need to be aware of their surroundings and conscious and alert, and not maybe walking down the street with music blaring in the ears and they can't hear a car coming towards them. So I think it's an overall safety thing, and then we have to rely on the security services to do what they do to try and prevent the big ones from occurring.